Hi everybody, welcome back to MACS Chats. My name is Anthea. Today I'm joined by
Kinanti
and
Viji.
Thank you guys for joining us today. Today we'll be talking about the ethics of the crime genre. So whether that is literal true crime, documentaries or series, so as well as like stuff like Four Corners on the ABC, so actual crime shows that talk about what's going on. It also could just be like, I don't know, Criminal Minds or NCIS, stuff like that. Like, we'll be talking about all these different things. But I really wanted to understand, like, what kind of brought you guys interested into this topic? Like, what made you guys want to be here and talk about this?
Okay, so for me, I feel like the ethics of true crime has been something that like me and a lot of my girlfriends always talk about. Like it's something that we do kind of go back and forth on. Like, yes, it's entertaining, but why are we entertained by the death of other people or like the misery of other people, you know? Like, it's just fun to talk about.
I completely connect with that. I think at some point I had questioned my sanity. That how can I be so entertained in having like at least one murder going on or something tragic going on. But I think I really loved this topic because I think grown up watching true crime shows, documentaries. Say it, believe it. I'm all in. I'm a little insensitive, sadly, kind of towards it. But then it's pretty intriguing to me just to know that something like this has happened.
Was it very vital to like your childhood or growing up for you guys? Or like, cause like for me, it was like a very big thing growing up. Like our family would kind of come together and watch like, I don't know, like Criminal Minds or like Law and Order SVE, like stuff like that. Where like,
honestly, I feel, why is that like such a, like a common thing for everybody to have like their families will watch CSI together or like NCIS or like a crime show. Always. It's always a crime show or a competition show like X Factor or something.
Yeah. I think it's just because it's very easy to follow.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was kind of like my thing with my family. We're like, oh, we're gonna get into this. Like, this is what's gonna happen. So what do you guys currently watch around like crime or like if there is anything? If not, like is what kind of what do you associate when you hear the word crime? Like in terms of media and genres?
In terms of media, that definitely like Netflix documentaries or like stuff like what's that girl that does mukbangs while she talks about
like Rotten Mango?
Yeah. Her. Love her, by the way. She's great. But that's like the only time I think I really, really like will enjoy something that's like true crime is like that or like BuzzFeed Unsolved when it was still around.
Oh my god.
That's a whole rabbit hole I feel like we could talk about.
BuzzFeed gets to you.
Yeah.
I miss them. It's okay. What about you?
I think personally for me, I think yes, Netflix documentaries. I think more than the aspect of what draws me into it, obviously, it's not just the crime, but then the way it is, the thought process, the strategy, what emotionally they're going through, mentally they're going through. I think that's way more intriguing and what kind of state they were in that they got to that place. I think that is something I look forward in all these kind of shows.
Is there any show that you guys like remember? You're like, oh, that was the show I like that kind of drew me in.
Oh God, there's not like any specific shows. It's just like one of those, you know, when it's like really late at night and you go into like really weird YouTube spirals. I remember watching something about like how people get indicted into like a cult and stuff. Just because I've always like wondered like how down bad do you have to be to like buy into like someone being like your savior or something, you know what I mean? It's like YouTube spirals, that kind of stuff.
I have numerous things to talk about that. I think one of the things which comes on top of my mind is this Netflix documentary. It's called Don't F with Cats. And it talks about a Netflix internet killer.
Oh.
So the point is obviously that they kill the cats, but then how they use the power of internet to get to know this person, find out this person, make this person get charged just by sitting in their own house. So the power of internet.
Netflix
and connectivity.
Netflix finds like the most insane stories.
And you know what, guys? It's true.
Oh my god.
This happened honestly. There was a social community on Facebook which just got together, wanted to find the person who hurt those cats. Took months and a lot of countless efforts, but then found the person, got justice, and it's
That's crazy.
Pretty interesting. Netflix, I think, does a great job in portraying documentaries in general.
Yeah.
And that's pretty intriguing.
So that's an insane story. Like, I was like, wow.
It's crazy.
No, I think it's very interesting because you have true crime in that case, like, you know, like Netflix documentary series, which are very, very true crime based. Like, this is a literal life that we're like learning about. And I think that's where the kind of question comes into. But can you apply that same like ethical consideration for a TV show? Like for Law and Order, for NCIS, for CSI, for all of these shows, like, can you say the same thing about it? Because sometimes, like, I mentioned it in like the first podcast we did for this season. I'm very into Criminal Minds. Like, I watch it like, it's what I watch when I eat, which is like sometimes I kind of think about it. I'm like, this is kind of disgusting. Like, I'm eating something and I see like a bloody guy. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this. Yeah. But I've been thinking about it. I was like, I kind of feel bad watching these shows, even though they're not necessarily true. They're inspired by something, right? What do you guys think about that?
I think when it's like a scripted show, even if it's, you know, like fake, it is inspired probably by like an actual crime that is probably maybe lesser known, but it is inspired by something. But they're not reaching out to like the real people, which I think is where like the ethics come in. When people make like a series or a documentary and they reach out to the people that are involved, you know, just to kind of like re-traumatize them in a way. That's where I think like my issue with true crime like lies. I think like Criminal Minds, I mean, I love Criminal Minds. I've watched all of them. I haven't watched the new one though, like the one that comes out.
I'm
like
still on season 12. Like, I am coming up right now. I'm running through it as soon as I can.
It's really good. And what I like about Criminal Minds is that they don't try to make you like attracted to like the murderers, because some shows do that.
Yeah, that's
some shows do that. They make you attracted to like the cops, which is another thing. But like, at least it's not like you're not, you know, attracted to murderers when you watch Criminal Minds, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
I think what I think is when I'm watching all these shows, or I think documentaries or things like that, I'm seeing the information they're giving. Like, so obviously they're inspired by true events and it is pretty sensitive. So it obviously when they're going all integrity and they're going into the details of it, they need to be sensitive, they need to be respectful. But when it comes to the other aspects of the true crime aspect that they're showing in their fiction, I think we should, I personally feel we should all take it in a more lighthearted information kind of way, so that we are more socially aware on what has exactly happened, and keeping the emotions, like not really blurting it out there.
Yeah.
Discrepancies.
I don't know. I think I think the genre in itself has so many questions underlying behind it. Like, it always starts with the ethics of like who's producing it, like what's the reason for producing it, what are we doing behind it, what's the like aftercare isn't the right word, but like you know what I mean? Like, I get it.
I get it.
Yeah, but like that kind of thing where it's like what are we gonna do to take care of the people around us? Because I think, like, you know, sometimes when you'll talk about maybe like a suicide that's not actually a suicide, but then they'll have a hotline, and it's like, obviously yes, that's, you're taking care of it, but to what extent, you know? And like, do you think that's the responsibility of like the viewer to know what they're getting themselves into and prevent themselves from getting like harmed? Or is also that the case of like the producer and director and the people creating the content to also acknowledge that like we do live in a society where people can obviously be hurt by a lot of things without even recognizing they could be hurt by it, you know? Like, where does that responsibility lie in, do you guys think?
I think it's both. I think, you know, the producers and the writers, they have to be really sensitive in how they want to tell the story. Because I do think sometimes, I think in recent years, it does border on like sensationalizing what happened, you know, making it into like this really big like spectacle where it's like, it's a story, but like some of this happens in real life. So I feel like it's really important to, you know, if it's something as sensitive as like a suicide or they should put like a disclaimer in the beginning. And the viewers also have to know that like if you are triggered by that kind of stuff, not watch it. Like, it's okay to have FOMO. Like, it's okay to like just read like a Cliff Notes like summary of something. You don't have to watch it if you know you're going to be triggered by it. I feel like we're also responsible for what we see. We have free will.
For sure.
That's what I'm saying.
We have free will. Completely agree with that. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that it's very interesting, and like I think that also it's very different in terms of like now with like YouTube and like TikTok, like Rod and Mango, for example.
Yeah.
Because I think because she's doing like a mukbang with it on the side, it's like the seriousness of it is like kind of like
it takes it away.
Yeah, like I'll see my mom like watching it. I'm like, okay, I kind of just like walk away. I'm like, oh, this is just odd in my opinion. But then again, I'm also into like random things on the online that I shouldn't like be like fanning over. So I don't know. What do you guys think about like the kind of TikTok influencers who specialize in like crime. Like, do you think that's necessarily okay? Because that's a very different realm than what a TV show would present.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to platforms like TikTok, obviously they're working on a very short frame. They need to get out as much information as they can. When again they're using such a big platform, I think they need to be using a lot of verified information. And of course, when they are being more ethical about that and sensible about that and taking responsibility of the information they're sharing, then makes sense they're using their any content creator who is just using an opportunity to, make their space on the app. But then I feel like if they are just doing it for the views and if they are not being ethically right about it, it can be misinformation and it can really cause like a lot of things. Because looking at the community that TikTok has and these big, Instagram and things like that have, it has a lot of power to trigger anyone, especially very easily, because there's no will. Like suddenly when it just comes up, there's no will that we can really operate on personally.
Yeah. I mean, I think for TikTok especially, because it's such a fast-paced app, every trend is like comes and goes so quickly. I feel like with the true crime things, they need to really be careful about reporting on stuff that's still happening, because sometimes they do that. Like it's still like ongoing and they already like posted multiple parts on TikTok when like we don't know what the outcome is and we don't know like what actually happened, but they're just like rehashing it over and over again. And yeah, like just like you said, it's misinformation at the end of the day if they do that.
Yeah, I have nothing. I'm like, yeah, honestly. But like, because you guys are talking about like news and as if these like people are trying to educate us. But what if it's not in the lens that they're trying to like educate in terms of like, here's what's going on, current affairs. Like I don't have any examples because I don't really follow any like crime TikTokers, but like TikTokers will talk about like true crime stories in a very like part one, like who is like I don't know, like Jeffrey Dahmer, like who's Jeffrey Dahmer, and then they have like part two, like series of them. Like is that like I can see her face getting a little like icked out by it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think because like Jeffrey Dahmer and like Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, like we know about them because it was so like extensively covered when it was happening. So I feel like in 2024, if you're still making content about that, why? Yeah. Because we have so much of like them, specifically them. And I just think it's unnecessary. And it's like, it's a revelation that I got from a very unexpected source, which is Khloe Kardashian. One time she was interviewed by like James Corden or something. And it was around the time where that show, People versus OJ thing was happening. Yeah. And she's like directly involved because her dad was involved. And she was like, oh, I watched it. I haven't really watched it, but I seen clips. It's not really accurate. It was dramatized. And she said something like, oh, mostly I feel really bad for OJ's kids because it's like she feels like they probably have moved on a little bit. And because the show came out and it was such a success that everyone's talking about OJ again, that it probably re-traumatized them. And that's what I kind of was like, oh, okay, well, yeah. I never really thought about it that way, but I think people forget that these true crimes, like there's a reason why the word true is there is because it happened and there are people that are probably still alive that went through it. And so,
I completely agree. Yeah. I think giving out information and actually like making people socially aware about the thing is fine. We all talk about history in some way. I don't think times like there play a role. I think there's a slight line of actually just sharing an information. Secondly, rather than like glorifying them, being like, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer, he did this and he did that, and the tone you put it across and the way you put it across. I think more than people being excited about getting to know him, I think it should just.
So like the education is the most important part in order to like justify this kind of genre. You guys think?
Yeah, education, setting, tone.
Yeah. Just to like jump on to a little like kind of like a subtopic of it. You know that claim that people say that, oh, like video. Okay, this sounds really irrelevant at the moment, but it does have a purpose. That video games make people violent, like that idea, right? Like, have you heard that claim before? Like, it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not. Like, it's a claim. But do you guys think that same claim can apply to like true crime shows? Like watching true crime can make you inherently violent, or can make you kind of want to like reenact those like actions, or like maybe kind of justify your own feelings if you do have some tendencies. I'm not saying that anybody does. Not saying that's how it works. I don't know anything about how like the mind works and how crime works in comparison, but like maybe some people have like kind of negative actions towards people, like if they want to kind of enact on them. Do you think that kind of plays a role in it, like true crime, or?
I feel like the personally when crime is projected, yes, it could come across because whatever we see, whatever we do, if you are involving ourselves into it, like our mind into it, then it does influence in some way. I wouldn't say that I got influenced. I have not killed anyone. I haven't killed anyone after watching all these shows, and I don't intend to as well. But then these tendencies, I think it's just, I think they do get to know if a person, but then it's again one's choice and one's surrounding and exposure. I think that's what would control the negatives to like go away.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think it definitely just depends on the person. You know, I feel like if you're already on that road to being violent, then yes. But I think if you're just a regular person that sometimes get a bit angry, you're not. You're fine. It's like it's okay. I mean, I don't know, like if that's fine, but like, I doubt you would end up killing somebody.
And like gross up things like crime, I feel like I'm sure that more than just watching a show or like watching a movie, you get inspired. I think there's a lot more psychologically, emotionally you're going through and situations which make you do such things where you hurt others or you feel like hurting yourself. So I think it's way deeper. This could be an aspect for sure, but definitely not entirely based on
just watching the violence. Like, I need to do this now. Like, no. But like you guys mentioned how you guys have thought about this, talked about this. Like what made it, like you mentioned how Khloe Kardashian kind of stood that out for you. How like Khloe Kardashian kind of made sounds like a crazy sentence. So like I know what you mean. Like kind of like brought that into like the limelight. Like okay. Not that anyone needs to change because of this. Like I think it's just like obviously like I still watch my crime shows. Like I don't care. Like I obviously don't think it's necessarily the most ethical thing, but I'll still do it. But for you guys and like for your friends as well, like did that take an effect on how you guys viewed the shows as well as like how much you watched them, how much you viewed them? Like did it play any role in kind of how you interacted with media after?
For me, yeah, it definitely, I mean, it didn't make me like stop watching BuzzFeed Unsolved because what I liked about BuzzFeed Unsolved is that they talked about crimes like that is like so old, that's like from the 20s and stuff like Jack the Ripper and things like that. And they, present it in such a lighthearted way. Like Ryan and Shane are really funny about it. They're not like, you can tell they're not trying to beat a dead horse. Like, they're not trying to like get more details out of this case that's been so like wildly talked about, which is what I like. But when certain documentaries or certain media that is about true crime that seems to kind of trying to beat the dead horse, we're trying to like gain more information on something that, probably they just want to put to rest. Like, I'd avoid it. Like that Dahmer show that came out on Netflix.
With Ross Lynch, that one? Or was there another one?
No,
there was another one. Another one. That's why I was like...
Fire.
That's why. That's a thing that I thoroughly like avoid is when... First of all, the Dahmer show on Netflix, it was Evan Peters who played Dahmer.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
And because of that show, so many people on TikTok were making edits of him as Dahmer and being like, he's so hot. Like, okay, but he played Dahmer. You can edit him in any other character except that one. Like, be so serious right now. Like, you're editing a murderer. And then finding out that the families of the victims reached out and said, like, please don't make this. Again, they said no, and the kid still made it.
Yeah.
That was like, okay, well, clearly it's not about to tell the story. It's about to sensationalize. And also, casting Evan Peters is such like a calculated move. Yeah. Because you know there are people who are going to like make edits of him, even as he plays Dahmer.
So, I don't know. I think that's I think that's a whole other thing. It's just like the fact that now we have media that's obviously, like, if you're into editing, if you're into making your edits, all those stuff, like, I'll support you. Yeah. But, like, place and time. Like, know what we're doing. Yeah. Like, if you're editing, I think especially that came up in, like, I think when TikTok was having this resurgence in, like, the 2020s because of COVID, people were making edits of Ted Bundy. And I was, how old was I? I was like 15, 14 in 2020. So I was like.
That's crazy.
I was like.
That's crazy. You were 15 in 2020?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
Wow. Okay.
Jesus.
Hey, old soul. No, I'm kidding. No, I remember like obviously I knew about like Charles Manson and like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know like details because I never was really intrigued in true crime growing up. I was like, this is like who cares, you know? So I was like, okay, and I got a TikTok on it, and I was like, who is this man? I was like, why is he? And when I searched it, I went, like that is not like I should not be glorifying somebody who's like obviously murdered like lots of women. But it's also like I don't know. I think it's a very interesting thing. Like you can have edits now or like slideshows that are like I don't know. Like, do you think this issue would be as prevalent if media wasn't a part of it? Like if we didn't have TikTok, if we didn't have Instagram, like not to the same degree that we use it today. Like maybe back like 10 years ago when it was kind of first coming out and it was like still musically making TikToks, all those things. Like now, do you guys think it would have the same effect?
Okay, but you know what's so funny when you said that in 2020 you saw an edit of Ted Bundy? In 2014, I saw an edit of the Columbine shooters. So this has been going on for a while. There are fangirls of murderers. Crazy. Like, I don't know how that even ended up on like my little Instagram page back in the day, but it ended up there. And I remember just being like, these people are weird.
Yeah.
Like, why would you glorify somebody that literally murdered 100 people probably and set up a bomb and stuff like that? Like, why?
Enacted fear in people.
Yeah. And the way that they were like, oh, I relate to him so much. Like, okay, then you need a psych eval. You shouldn't like, you know what I mean? Like you shouldn't be making edits. You should go to a doctor.
Yep.
You know? It's weird. It's weird. I will never understand that. I'm sorry.
No, it's so rare.
Yeah, I think media's portrayal of crime has been growing like crazy. I think initially when things were started coming out and things like that, they were pretty sensitive about some kind of information. They would not take out that information. They would not show us that those images and things like that and just put it on imagery, like put it on like this is the story, this is what happened.
Yeah.
But now, as you said, like Instagram and TikTok and when the short videos coming forward and people get easy access to just access media one-on-one, then they one-to-many, then it goes crazy. And then the power they hold, if they're not educated and responsible with it, so it depends from one to one. I wouldn't say that the entire form of media. I would say that there are certain people who are just making people just socially aware and making things like telling a story time and letting people know that something like this had happened and one just in case you need to know just for if you're interested in this genre by any chance. But then if they are going to be irrational and just put out something insensitive without really respecting the guidelines of themselves or even the community. And that is something I think that's where media is a bit scary for sure. It can hold a lot of part.
It is crazy.
Okay, what about books? Do you guys read true crime books? Or have you ever read one?
I'm a visual person.
Because a lot of true crime books that I saw is like very much like a court document. It's not even like entertaining. It's just like at this hour, this people like came into this house and did this. Like, okay, I can just watch something. That's why I think
that's fair.
Yeah. I personally, even I'm a visual person. So I really like watching and anticipating than reading.
What
about you?
My last semester, I had a tutor who we talked a lot about like book journalism in terms of like how we like books about journalism, but as well as like just media and content as like using that kind of style of writing as journalism in itself. And have you heard about the book In Cold Blood by Truman Capote?
I heard about it.
Yeah, so basically, for people who don't know, Truman Capote was the one who wrote Breakfast at Tiffany's. And then one of his last books, he decided to write about this murder of a small family within somewhere in the U.S., maybe like Idaho or something. I don't exactly know. And basically, after that, the killers obviously, they were in jail. I think they were on death row. And he started doing like a pen pal with one of the killers. This might not be actually true, but there were rumors that they ended up having like an affair, like one of the killers and Truman himself, and they were like kind of in love. He writes about basically what happened before the killing, during the actual killing. If I remember, like I'm reading it, but it's very hard to read because I'm also like I need something to like stimulate us. I'm like, okay, like I need to. but he doesn't describe it necessarily in like graph detail, but it's like, this is what's happened, this is how we found them, stuff like that. But I haven't, maybe there's a point where they tell you like, actually this is like, he got like shot like this. I'm like, oh, okay, like I haven't gotten to that point. No spoilers, please. But and then he talks about like the relationship with the killers, and I think that's a very, very different like piece of true crime in that sense, because obviously like you're getting a quote unquote first-hand account, you know, like who really knows that this is like necessarily true from the killers. And I was wondering, like, in those cases, obviously now that they're all deceased, like that family has obviously been passed away for a while.
Yeah.
Those killers have been passed away for a while. He's now like Truman himself has passed away. Do you think it's ethical and it's fair for us to understand where, I mean, not that it's fair, but do you think it's fair, like, I don't know the word, but like to understand where the killers are coming from? Like, do you think that plays a proper part in true crime? And like also like as a viewer, as an enjoyer of it, like, do you want to know those things, or is it kind of just like,
I feel like it is like just human nature to want to know why.
Exactly.
You know, it's not necessarily like wanting to understand, but it's just like for someone to do someone that horrific, you want to know why. Like, why would you do that? Because I feel like we're not killers, like naturally born killers. Like I feel like no one's gonna like be born in this world wanting to kill people.
Yeah.
So when stuff like that happens, like it's so natural to want to know, which I get. But the thing that I've noticed about a lot of people is that they don't understand nuance. And it's very much like, oh, like he was bullied. Okay, so it's justified. No, it's not.
Yeah.
He's still a murderer, but you know, like, yeah,
You can
he had a
understand.
rough go at it growing up, sure, but that doesn't mean you kill someone.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Because I was wondering, like, that first-hand account from, like, the letters that Truman was putting in his book.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to that point. I don't know how. It might take me a year to get to that point, because honestly, like, this man's writing was so hard for me to understand. But we're trying through it, you know? But I wanted to see, like, my own kind of understanding of, like, if I think reading it obviously changes the entire way you approach it. Like, watching something, visualizing it, like, being able to see, like, I don't know, like, the recreated murders or the recreated pain and stuff, you know, someone might go through is very, very different than reading it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, would you guys ever find yourself maybe reading something like this, or just like you kind of turn away from it if you had to read?
There was this book about like, I think it was called Helter Skelter or something, and it was about Charles Manson and his whole cult, you know, how they murdered like Sharon Tate and stuff. I've always heard about it. It's a pretty big book, so I don't know if I'm ever going to get to it, but I would like to, maybe if I, you know, find myself in a space where I want to do that, but I don't know.
I think personally, I'm not a reader.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I would read and I get the aspect of it, but then I think more than giving time to that, I would definitely give time to like something visual and things like that. It just helps me like grasp it way more faster and understand it way more better.
I wanted to ask something about like your own personal experience with it. So, are you guys from Australia? No, right?
No.
Where are you guys from?
I'm Indonesian.
Oh my god, me too, Queen.
Really?
Okay, we'll get to this after. Sorry.
I'm an Indian.
Okay. And I was wondering, like, for you guys at least, like, do you guys engage with like true crime content from back home, or with like content surrounding that kind of
Regional based.
Like
from back home.
Yeah, like you know how obviously like you have the American shows like Criminal Minds, stuff like that. Like, do you guys have those like versions at home?
Oh yeah. I'm a proud representative. So all the Indians in the house would be so proud I did this. There's something called CID. It's Crime Investigation Department.
Oh.
So this is the show. It's a fictional show, of course, and there are like 8 cops, and they're every day trying to chase, you know, murderers and things like that, and that. It's so intriguing, like what happened, and they find. Okay, I'm not happy about it, but then they find the body, and then it goes to forensic, and this happens, and then what is the manipulation? Who lied? Oh, what happened? This is something which all of us, I'm sure most of us have seen it throughout our life. We actually, I think, grew up with it mostly. Like, I think we have spent like good 6-7 years.
Are they still producing it now?
Oh no, they actually recently stopped it. They've stopped it, I think, 4 years back.
Oh wow! So like around COVID time.
Yeah, they had stopped it before that, and so they had a pretty regular running show until then they stopped it, and then I think after COVID they threw out like another like a good 10 episode kind of throwback, obviously, which didn't align much with the audience because we all grew up and we realized that it's too fiction because it's Indian, right? So it's dramatic as hell. Like, we are all about the drama. We need to know, like, if the door is kicked, it's not just kicked, it's like kicked thrice and heavier. So that's, I think, pretty crazy. And there are like true crime. Obviously, even in India, there has been
Mhm.
yeah. So there was this incident. It's about Burari deaths. So what's that incident is there are 11 people in the family,
Mhm.
and
wasn't
all
there
of
a
them
Netflix
dead.
thing about it?
Yeah. So it first it was like obviously the incident, and
Yeah.
then there a book came about it, and then
On
and then
Netflix.
there's
Yeah.
so there's this 11 people in the family.
Wait, what's it called? Sorry.
Burari deaths. Burari.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's about 11 people. They're part of the family and they did mass suicide.
Oh wow.
One go, all 11. So they were trying to find out what happened because they were all different age groups. So there are fathers, the mother-in-law, too, like kids, like going like to school, like third grade, fourth grade.
That's crazy.
And it was crazy. But then so this, something like this also has been like, then they portray it in news. It just doesn't come as a form of entertainment, right? Because it has happened in the country, so it's way more relevant. And when they put it in news, it's pretty indifferent.
Yeah.
Because when news channels try to put it up, then they're looking for TRP. They're looking for try to get the first news out and the first picture out. And I think I personally feel they were pretty insensitive towards the incident. I think this is something was very tragic and people around them were really like shocked by it, and they just put out like pictures of like how it was and what it was. And I think sometimes you don't need that. I think yes, as humans we are intrigued to get to know more.
Yeah,
but
we
do
don't
we
know-
need to
we
be
have- don't have
provided
to
with
know all
it?
that.
Do we need to be provided with it? No. Let's not serve us so much.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially because like, I think especially because it's a local story as well. Like growing, like when you're there, it's probably like a lot more intense, and then seeing it kind of be capitalized off of it, you're like, oh, it's a little bit, yeah. What about you?
I think back in Indonesia, I mean, yeah, there's been a couple there's been crime, but there's like I remember vividly when I was like 7 or something. Someone invited like a cannibal onto like a TV show. Like it was this talk show, and there was this guy in this village that was known to like dig up graves and eat the dead bodies, and like for some reason like he became a public figure. And
The worst part is
obviously,
that's
like-
not surprising about Indonesia.
I know, exactly. It's like, of course we would sensationalize that. And of course we would capitalize on that. But yeah, obviously after inviting that person, the show got canceled, deserved. But it was still like really weird for me to kind of have that happen. You know, that's like canon in my lore. That I saw a cannibal on live TV. Like it was live TV too. And it was like crazy. But yeah.
I can imagine. But I was wondering as well, like for you guys, obviously a lot of the media we get is like Western and stuff like that. So in cases where like for example the Burari family, like how did it make you feel like knowing that like Netflix made a docuseries about them, but it's obviously like the people making it aren't from the culture, maybe. They may not be necessarily in tune with what's going on in that society. Like are there ethics between that as well, like how you're depicting it? Because I genuinely think like if like in the bombing in Bali in like early 2000s, like that kind of behavior, like obviously that's very, very sad and it's very scary. But how would we feel if it was being depicted by a Western power, Western media that obviously doesn't understand the general gravitas of how it's affected the Indonesian culture, or same thing in India and stuff like that? Like, what do you guys think about that kind of ethics, about like the origins?
Yeah. I do, like, especially the Bali bombings. It definitely skewed into Islamophobia when they talk about it. It's like, oh, it's because of this. But it's like, at the end of the day, terrorism is terrorism.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anything else. It's just terrorism. So I feel like the Western mind kind of can't really grasp that a little bit. Like, there's always something that, they think is part of being a terrorist when it's just that.
Just terrorism, yeah. What about for the like? Do you have any like encounters within like maybe when you're back home, if there was anything that stood out to you?
When it comes to media, I think one thing I've understood is that, especially news media and informational media, they're looking forward to. Their main aim is to make sure that you get to know what's happening. They report it, they project it. Now there are different forms. Obviously, they're doing it real time. That's different. But when you tell Netflix projecting something like this, yes, it could be insensitive. Once you're not part of the culture, you're not part of that family or around that family or something. But then, of course, when Netflix does something like this, they are inclined, not Netflix. So one thing about Netflix documentaries or Netflix shows, so it's not them making it. So they work with local, or they work with like different, direction. I mean, like different teams, different
People from the area.
people from the area and things like that, and they try to work with them, try to connect with them. I personally feel like Netflix has had to go through a lot of legal procedures as well. When they're taking out information and putting out information like that, there would be like a circle of consent with the family as well. I think when these procedures are taken care, I think we are allowing it to come out through the media. So they cannot be shamed for projecting or showcasing something like this.
So like following proper legal like restrictions
Legal,
and
ethical protocols.
Yeah. Okay. No, I completely agree with that. I don't know. I think that a lot of the times when I see these shows, because you don't typically you don't hear a lot about like, I would say foreign, not that we should, but like foreign murders, foreign like, like I think the household names of like big murders are like, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, like which is quite weird in the case of like, also like, why these three? But also like, I don't know, like I think about when I first moved here and like, I'm pretty sure you guys probably expected the same thing, like people bringing up stuff and you're also just as confused. You're like, what are you talking about? Like I remember being in my class and like, oh, the murder, like the backpack hike murderer, I don't know what his name is.
Backpacker.
Yeah. And I was like, who are we talking about? Like I had to I was like,
that was crazy.
I was like, I'm really sorry, like who is that? And my tutor would obviously like, they're very nice, will explain it, but I'm also like, I think it's a weird culture thing. Like it's a very weird thing that like people collectively just know things about like
American.
Yeah, like
murderers.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, like should this really be like a culture we have?
I think that will. I think when if you take it like it's a kind of awareness. You know about a lot of things. Now we are talking about crime, so obviously we're talking about integrities of crime. But when it comes to any other thing which is happening in the world, there is someone or some person talking about it. They know about it.
Yeah.
They're interested about it. I think what we should focus more about is not a person getting to know about it to someone, but about how they talk about it, how they project it. Are they going to be insensitive about it? Like, oh my God, or glorify it in some way, or try to encourage it in some way, try to inculcate that in themselves in some way? That's scary. But if they're going to take it and they're going to respect the situation and be aware and just be, way more cautious and just socially more acceptable, then it's completely fine, I feel. I think it's about the action after.
Yeah, I think that's why like Rotten Mangoes is so popular, is because she doesn't only talk about like true crime in America.
Yeah,
like it goes all around the world, which is weird that we are expecting diversity in true crime. Now that I think about it, it's like we're expecting diversity in murders, guys. Let's go. But no, it is like it is weird that kind of we know a lot about America and a lot about like the people that got killed in America. But at the same time, I don't know. Do we need to know though? That's the thing. Sometimes I do question it. I'm like, do we need diversity in murders? I feel like that's the one place we shouldn't try.
We can just leave it there.
Yeah, we can just leave it out. It's fine.
I think that's also just a big thing about like, obviously for a long time, like the US was a big superpower. So obviously like, everything we got was from them, which that's a whole other conversation. Like we don't get into that now. Like I'll make this another topic. No, but I don't know. Sometimes it's like, is diversity really like? I know what you mean. Like, do we really need to know about this? But also, like, I think we should, because it's also a very big cultural thing, and like, it's important to know where you're going and like the history behind places if it is significant. But also, like, do I need to know all the details about like every single person that like Ted Bundy killed? No. Respect their privacy. Let their family be okay. Like,
exactly.
I don't know. And
completely agree.
I don't know. I think it's very weird, especially because like a lot of it. It's weird because we glorify the murderers. We don't glorify the people who were hurt by it. We don't glorify the people who were affected by it. Like there are families today who are probably descendants of the same lineage and who are probably living with this fear, knowing that like my family member was hurt and killed by this person, which is obviously very traumatizing. And like I can imagine kind of the influence it has on like families as well as like social dynamics. But I think it's very interesting to see how like, because we're from like abroad and we're international, like, we don't understand those. Like we have a completely different understanding of what true crime might mean to us than it might mean to like a local person from here. I don't know.
I think like that's another thing that I did. So like 9/11 or something. As some Indonesian, I thought that like the towers being hit, like I legit thought that Osama is so rich that he just had 2 empty planes and he just like shot it through the towers. I recently found out because my roommate, she was from America and she did an exchange. She was like, no, that's actually like a real flight that got hijacked. And I was like, whoa, okay, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like because I'm not from America, I don't know the actual implications of 9/11 and how it affected the way America operated, because it did affect a lot. Like, like TSA, like everything. Like, it affected so many things. And same with, like hearing about like the Night Stalker in LA and how that changed the way people in LA like operate their nightlife, or like when Charles Manson was around, how that like ended the 70s or ended the 60s, I think. Sorry. But yeah, like
facts are not needed here. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Facts are fine.
Like, it is true that unless you're from the country where it's like directly where it happened, you don't understand like the implications of it and how big it was.
I agree. Do you have anything to add?
I completely agree with it. There's a next level of sensitivity which is needed when you're talking about this stuff, when you're analyzing it. I think you should, the way you communicate it, the way you put it should be very sensitive. So these things really matter because she was not from US, and according to her story, she didn't know what exactly and the depth it was. So I think when she was shown about it, she was told about it, I think it should have been portrayed or just clear information. And I completely agree with all details are not needed. No, I don't think it's not the most present thing that is happening. So if it is happening while we are traveling to that country, yes, let me know. Blah blah blah. And that also is something in a more political, legal kind of way, like let me know, like a procedure, like something like this is happening and precaution and things like that. But other than that, it's all a story. And humans can live without details. I think we're fine.
We can. I don't know. Well, we're coming up to an end soon, but before we end it, I just want to hear like your kind of final thoughts. As well as just like, me personally, I think true crime and crime shows are very different. And I will die on that hill. I will make sure that that is known. Like, they are not the same thing. And I'm assuming you guys obviously
Obviously, I love like Criminal Minds is a show I go back to every once in a while.
Exactly.
It's something
comfort show.
Not really. Like, Criminal Minds, Bones, CSI, NCIS. Like, it's a whole like subset of culture that I will always revisit. But true crime is something that you learn once, leave it out. Leave it. You don't have to rewatch every video of like Ted Bundy, because let that man die.
Yep.
Because we're giving him what he wants. He wanted fame. He wanted to be known. He is. And we're giving it to him. So that's why. It's like, I completely agree. Crime shows and true crime are completely different entities.
And I think applying those ethics to them is a very different thing. And I think this conversation can go on for like hours. And honestly, there's like so many different subplots we can go into, as well as like media. Like, it's a very, very complicated issue that I think that we have. I think it's obviously case by case basis, and I think a lot of people obviously have their own personal things. But I wanted to open up the floor just for you guys to see if there's anything you wanted to kind of put in, like not last thoughts, but prominent thoughts that you had throughout this conversation that you were unable to kind of say throughout it. Like, is there anything that stands out to you guys in your head where like, I wanted to say this and I completely forgot to say this earlier?
I don't know. I feel like for me personally, what I've noticed is that the popularity of true crime, it relates to something, which is that the fact that Hollywood has stopped making original things. Like, I truly will defend this till the day I die, because if Hollywood had just funded original things, no remakes, no nothing, just completely original stories, we wouldn't be in a society where we keep talking about Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. I really do think that. I mean, just, kind of like, and also just like, like, it's just Hollywood has given up on being original. I feel like it's always remakes, always live actions. And even if something is original and it, like, right before it becomes like popular enough to be mainstream, they pull it out of theaters, they put it on streaming. So that's my final 2 cents, is that Hollywood, get back to being original, and then maybe we'll stop talking about Jeffrey Dahmer. Thank you.
I feel the same. I think when it comes to crime shows, I think the part where it was fiction, there's some part of fiction there that was itself a great way to take it as entertainment. That was that light heart in, while watching that made you feel like, okay, it's fine. There's something like this has happened, but it's still enlightening, it's still informational, but still it's not triggering, right? It's been projected very child friendly to you. But but now recent times when true crime has become the only genre, sadly, mostly true crime has become the only genre where they're looking for such instances just to make entertainment out of it, just to make profit out of it. I think that is something, it's still the gray area we need to really think about on what we are expecting out of this. Like true crime, are we expecting the entertainment part, or are we going to take a stand and talk to them about how insensitive this could go? Because it is pretty triggering. All of us, we are blessed. So we are talking about other stories.
Yeah.
But if it was something which was as personal to us, I think we would have been devastated, no matter in the form of like information, in the form of entertainment, in the form of social events. Like we don't care about that. We would be like, excuse me, that is something which changed my life.
Yeah.
And that is not something. So I think this is something which we need more awareness about people's emotions and what they would go through. I think, something like that. I think it definitely matters because Netflix, sadly, if you guys have noticed, at this point, if someone doesn't want to be part of a Netflix series,
They keep going.
they still mention it.
Yeah.
They keep
They
it going.
still mention it. They're like,
Didn't they use
that
AI
person
for something?
told me no.
Didn't they use AI for like that documentary about that girl that planned to hit on her parents or something? Like they used AI.
Oh, that Asian Canadian
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
I have no idea her name.
Yeah,
They used
but-
AI for that? Sorry.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
but like I think I saw something about like they used AI for like a specific part because like someone involved didn't agree to it, and I was like, man, okay, see, bring back originality.
Yeah.
2024 Project Originality. Let's go.
Real. Okay. Well, thank you guys both for joining me. Thank you guys for listening. I think you've kind of heard our general consensus on the ethics of crime. Obviously, this conversation will be going on for years and years and years. Like what this didn't end with us, unfortunately. We wish. But I think this is definitely something that the viewers and listeners, as well as ourselves, like we can take away from this and remember and keep in mind the next time we interact with a new story, a new crime story, true crime, whatever, all of these things. As for the rest of this episode, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. If you guys are interested in being in another podcast in the near future, just like they are, please check out our Instagram at Monash MACS. Every Monday we have a new story up with a new topic, and you guys can say if you're interested or not and be a part of it. If not, you can also fill out the form in our bio, potentially to either show your interest in, or even maybe put in a topic in if you guys are interested. I don't know.
I would love.
Exactly. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for coming. I said this 3 times now, so it's gonna get repetitive. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.
Bye.